welcome on board everybody, Jelena, Pia-Comella, Ashley, Lauren, and our distinguished participants this morning. We are here for the second session of the Global Youth Leadership Program. Our theme today is Women's Empowerment and Gender Equality. As you may know, from 9 to 20 March, the world will be gathering at the United Nations headquarters in New York for the UN Commission on the Status of Women. This will be the 70th session of CSW, the largest annual platform dedicated for civil society organizations, women's experts, gender equality experts to convene, meet with member states, diplomats, and what happens at the CSW during those 2 weeks really influences the law, policies, funding, and absolutely the accountability across many different countries and generations. This year's focus is very clear: rights, access to justice, and action for all women and girls. So this will be absolutely a defining moment as we encounter various forms of violations increasingly documented for women's rights and gender equality. So I think this month's theme is very relevant as we are approaching CSW, and we have on board two experts who are trailblazers in their areas working towards women's empowerment and gender equality. So today we will first hear from Ms. Jelena Pia-Comella, a senior international consultant. And she has started her distinguished career in 1996 as a diplomat representing Andorra at the United Nations, Canada, and United States. She was a part of the team that created the foreign policy of her country. Ms. Comella was appointed as Deputy Permanent Representative of Andorra to the UN in 2002 and served as Chargé d'Affaires Canada and the United States from 2001 to 2007. Formerly, she served in different capacities for civil society organizations, including the Center for Women's Global Leadership and Women's Empowerment and Environment and Development Organization, whose GEAR campaign led to the creation of UN Women. From 2018 to 2024, she consulted with the Global Action Against Mass Atrocity Crimes in various capacities to advise on strategic planning, outreach, gender mainstreaming, and fundraising. Currently, Ms. Pia-Comella serves as an independent member of the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, known as CEDAW. Ms. Pia-Comella is an adjunct lecturer at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, adjunct assistant professor at Hofstra University. She is also a former member of the United Nations Institute for Training and Research. Ms. Pia-Comella, thank you so much for your time this morning. We have an expert who has been proactively taking actions in diplomatic areas, civil society, and academics. So I think we have a once upon a time chance to engage with such a distinguished expert. So over to you, Jelena. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cemre, and it is an honor to support you and Mehmet and the Journalists and Writers Foundation in increasing, I would say, awareness of why do you need women at the table and in leadership position. I am very honored indeed to support the program this year again, and of course to be a co-panelist with such a power woman as Ashley Lawrence. So you couldn't have done a better match. So I really look forward, and I will start with the normative framework. This is my expertise. And nowadays, I think it's worth taking a little bit of a step back and frame why do we need to promote women's rights and gender equality. It was enshrined already, maybe not as perfect as we would have liked it, because let's be honest, when the United Nations were created, half of the population was not there, and you still had European countries colonizing, right? So you had most of sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, who were still enduring the brutality of colonialism. So we know that. We know that not everybody was at the table when the charter was signed. However, the aspiration is still very true today, and it still resonates. And it is already on part 3 of Article 1 of the Charter of the United Nations that in order, and I'm paraphrasing, in order to achieve the main mandate of the United Nations as a new legal order to maintain peace and security, you needed to have solidarity among member states on equal footage, and you needed to have equality no matter your background, your race, or your sex, right? So, and the promotion of human rights. So this nexus, equality, promotion of human rights and women's rights to a certain extent, leading to peace and security, was already an aspiration from day one of the creation of the United Nations. Now we know that women have not always been at the table, and I will focus a little bit, especially because Ashley Lauren, she's into this strata of how to promote women's leadership. I will focus on women's leadership as well, but from the normative side. So fast forwarding, right? The international community adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, and you know that Sustainable Development Goal 5 is precisely the one that aims to achieve equality and empower all women and girls, right? And you know that in order to monitor progress on this, you have different indicators. And I'm going to tell you about 4. The first one is that in order to achieve gender equality, you need to end all forms of discrimination against women and girls everywhere. And that's where I will tell you more about the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, and as a member of the CEDAW committee. Now, I would like to give the disclaimer that I'm speaking from my own words, right? I'm not speaking on behalf of the committee. So this is on my own capacity. So I will tell you a little bit more about this indicator. You need to eliminate harmful practices. For instance, child, early and forced marriage, right? If you want gender equality. Then you need to ensure indicator target 5.5, and that's the subject matter of today. You need to ensure women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision making. So it's about 50-50 at the decision making if you really want to have change, right? And the fourth one is that you need to ensure universal access to sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights as agreed in the program of action of the Beijing platform. Now, let's dive in. How do we accomplish gender equality by eliminating all forms of discrimination against women? So the landmark convention is the CEDAW Convention. It was adopted by the General Assembly in 1979, and it entered into force in 1981. Believe it or not, it's not that long ago. Okay? I'm sure that most of you were not born. I was born already. But, you know, when you think about it, that the United Nations was created in 45, and you had a landmark treaty promoting women's rights through ending discrimination against them only in 1979. Look how many years it took of advocacy of fierce female leaders to ensure that that aspiration enshrined in the Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights once translated. So the CEDAW Convention basically lies on 3 principles: equality, men and women need to be equal, non-discrimination, so states need to repeal all discriminatory laws and practices, and then the state obligation. So while the advantage is that when a country ratifies the CEDAW Convention, this country is legally binded, right? Those who don't ratify it, they are not legally binded. But in the US, for instance, you have cities for CEDAW, which is a localization of the CEDAW Convention at that level, right? So I will tell you a little bit about the convention and then how do we monitor it. So because it's a treaty, you need to have someone, right, monitoring whether the state party is on track of ending discrimination against women. And under the CEDAW Convention, it creates the committee of 23 experts, and I am very honored to be one of the 23 members. This is my second year. It's a mandate of 4 years that you can run again, right? So I will tell you what we do while I'm analyzing the convention. So this expert group, we are independent and partial experts, meaning that we do this pro bono. We don't get instructions from our countries or the organizations we work at my universities. They don't give me instructions. I'm not working for the UN. And this impartiality and this independence is extremely important because you have the honor to support 189 states. Well, in my case, 188, because we are never a country rapporteur or in the task force for our home country, right? So what do? We hold a dialogue with state parties and we go article by article and we say, look, part one of the convention, where you have the definition and the measures to eliminate discrimination against women, we ask them, well, when applicable, we analyze whether the constitutions have a definition of equality or gender equality. If there are provisions in the constitution that they are discriminatory, we ask the state party to amend them. When there are laws that they are discriminatory, we ask the state party, we accompany them and asking them to repeal them, right? So that's basically the application of Article 1 and 2, right? That you need to accompany state parties to adopt appropriate legislative and other measures to ensure that you prohibit discrimination against women. There is an article, and I will not go article by article. We do the review of the 16, I would say, operational articles, right? One article that I want to bring to the attention of today's participants is Article 5, because that's the nucleus, right? And also there's an opportunity to mobilize, Cemre, if I may, Article 5 of the convention, and we ask state parties to ensure that they take all appropriate measures to modify the social and cultural patterns of conduct that they set a hierarchy of superiority and inferiority between men and women, right? And this is really at the core. So, as we speak, the committee is drafting General Recommendation 41, that this goes to all state parties, right? We do tailor-made recommendations after the dialogue of the state party, but these general comments or recommendations are a compilation of the legal and normative framework, it is soft law, to accompany states into eliminating a specific aspect of discrimination. So we will post the draft on the website. State civil society organizations will be able to give input, right? And this is General Recommendation 41, which aims to equip state parties of the CEDAW Convention to eliminate stereotypes. So really at the core. Now, part two of the convention aims at eliminating discrimination in the political and public life. And here, I want to draw to your attention, how do we accompany state parties in the effective application of Article 7, which means that state parties, they need to ensure that women have leadership position in the public life, in government, in parliament, in diplomacy, in civil society organizations, in boards, at academia. So really it is about having women in leadership positions. You have a general recommendation of the committee, General Recommendation 40, that the committee adopted in 2024, that speaks to this 50-50. So the baseline, in order to achieve prosperity, development, peace, as enshrined in the Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you need 50-50 as a baseline. Now, part 3 of the convention, it's equality in the economic life and in education. And that's one article, Article 10, that I'm trying to specialize more. So I accompany state parties in the proper application, effective application of equality in education. Equality in education is mainly twofold. Is that girls and women need to go to school, to university, and that they need access to the same curriculum and syllabi, right? That's the first step. The other part is that you need to ensure that your school books, they don't perpetuate stereotypes, right? So for example, when you show kids, well, this is a doctor and this is a nurse, that you don't always have a male as a doctor and a female as a nurse, right? So that's also equality in education, that the textbooks need to have this equality. Part 4 of the convention is equality between men and women in marriage and family law. And then part 5 of the convention establishes the committee, and part 6 is about reservations and all this. So I've been telling you, and I'm going to wrap it up. I know that time is up. What we do in the committee is these main tasks, right? And I'm not going to talk, that could be another conversation about the optional protocol. The optional protocol to the CEDAW Convention allows for individual communications and inquiries, right? But not all the 189 state parties have ratified it, right? So 3 main tasks: the constructive dialogue with state parties, because they need to report every 4 years, and we ask them very tailored questions. And guess who's helping us to polish our questions? Civil society organizations. The CEDAW committee has such a wonderful partnership with civil society. We go over the shadow reports, and Cemre has experience on this. We have an hour of meetings with them. We can also meet bilaterally if they feel that they're going to have reprisals. And this informs us to accompany state parties in the effective application of the convention through the general recommendation, through the concluding observations. So that's task number 1. Task number 2 is to elaborate the soft law, this compilation of the legal and normative framework of CEDAW and other international law norms and legal frameworks to eliminate discrimination against women, and then the optional protocol. So as a member, I'm trying to focus on education. I think that this is key. You will never achieve gender equality and you will never fight discrimination against women if from the very early age girls don't have the same opportunity as boys, right? I've been also quite active in the working group on working methods to try to make these dialogues more agile, to have better, more efficient rules. So for example, I'm the follow-up rapporteur, right? I need to write state parties after 2 years of the dialogue, whether they have implemented the four top recommendations. So before we used to read the reports, the letters. So let's be efficient, right? I don't need to read them. I look at them, I share them with the committee members, we approve them, that's it. I know it sounds like very simple, but little things like that make a big difference. So over to you, Cemre, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. And again, I apologize that when I accepted the invitation, my class was not was not confirmed, and I will have to leave you around 10:45. But over to you, and again, Mehmet and Cemre, thank you for including me in this opportunity because you guys are the leaders of the future.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Jelena. And your remarks really provided a well-grounded and holistic approach on the norms of CEDAW and its implementation processes. And your highlight on the role of civil society was particularly important, as I think, as we approach the upcoming Commission on the Status of Women, the biggest platform for civil society entities to have a meaningful dialogue with stakeholders. And I also resonate with your reflections, and it reminded me once again that all the 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, are interrelated, interdependent on one another to achieve SDG 5 on gender equality if we would like to have a broader success by 2030 deadline. So thank you so much. And now we will give the floor to Ashley Lauren Elrod. She is a nationally recognized survivor turned social impact changemaker, transforming how communities protect and advocate for children and survivors. As an advisory board member of the Chicago Children's Advocacy Center with partnerships with the National Children's Alliance, United Nations, International Justice Mission, and more, she champions stronger rights, trauma-informed systems, and survivor-centered prevention. She is the founder of Visionary Women Productions and the Reclaim Institute, where she leads Maya's Magic Word, a first of its kind interactive early childhood abuse prevention program teaching children as young as 2 the language and confidence to set boundaries and stay safe, as well as bridge the gaps of big conversations between adults and children to change the course of how our society speaks of very real fears in trauma-informed, empowering way. Ashley Lawrence advocacy has reached national audiences through award-winning campaigns, including her Emmy nominated and Cannes Golden Lion winning partnerships with Dow on the Kids Online Safety Act. Across media, education, and community leadership, she is known for transforming lived experiences into powerful frameworks that heal, empower, and protect the next generation. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for your time this morning to be with us to address our young professionals coming from many different countries. We have dozens of countries represented at the session. So over to you for your reflections.
Thank you guys for having me. It's so great to be here. I'm like in the midst of a little basement here. I'm speaking at a different event today. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. It's great to be here. And a little bit of just what I'm going to be talking about today is not only just encouraging the topic of girls and women, but overall encouraging you all as young leaders and up and comers that are advocating in their countries and for their governments and for a better humanity. So I'm excited to be here with you all today. So across continents and languages and different cultures, we are gathered around one shared question. And right now, that's how do we create a world where gender equality is not just aspirational, but it's really lived experience? Civil society has always been the birthplace of that answer. Not in the boardrooms or not in headlines, but in communities, in our actual communities that we're advocating in, that we're working for, in classrooms and grassroots movements, in the courage of people who saw injustice early and chose not to look away. And many of those people were young. They were young, up and coming leaders that had a vision to see things differently and to create new systems, which is why the conversations matter so deeply, especially today. You are not just the future of leadership, you are the present form that is shaping it. I didn't enter civil society through theory. I entered through lived experience. I am a survivor of childhood abuse who grew up navigating systems that were supposed to protect me but often didn't. And that experience shaped the questions that still guide my work today. Why does empowerment so often come after harm? Why do we invest more in response than prevention? Why are the most impacted voices often the last to be heard? And those questions became a calling for me. Over time, that calling led me into advocacy across survivor networks, child protection movements, and prevention-driven initiatives. Today, my work focuses on something I believe is essential for the next era of gender equality. Through platforms like Maya's Magic Word, which I'm currently building right now, which will be the first ever interactive prevention educational platform and tool, along with curriculum, to be launching into the pilot phase early this spring. I have been working on designing prevention-first education that actually helps children to understand their boundaries, their voice, consent, and safety before harm ever happens. Because real empowerment should begin in childhood and not in recovery. When we talk about civil society and global spaces, it can sound very institutional, but at its core, civil society is quite simple, and it starts right here in forums such as this. It's people who choose responsibility beyond themselves. The youth organizers, survivor advocates, community educators, nonprofit founders, digital storytellers, and the grassroots innovators. Civil society is the connective tissue between lived experience and true systemic change. It's where our culture between all of us shifts before the policy follows. And historically, youth have always been at the center of these shifts. From education access to human rights to gender justice, young leaders have repeatedly redefined what is possible, not because they've had the most power, but because they had the clearest proximity to the truth. So we are currently living in a moment of unprecedented visibility. We talk more openly about gender equality. We see more women in leadership. We have more global frameworks than ever before. But still, millions of girls and women remain unsafe. Millions of women remain unheard. Millions of survivors remain unsupported with actual funding and programming that supports them after being harmed. This is the tension of our time right now that stems to absolutely everything when it comes to homelessness, addiction, and the overall war that's happening within all of our countries around the globe right now. Visibility has expanded faster than protection. And the next era of gender equality must close that gap. Because equality is not only about access, it is about safety, it is about dignity, it is about agency, and it is about actually supporting others in their autonomy fully. It is about building systems where empowerment isn't symbolic, but it's structural. And that work cannot be done by the institutions alone. It truly requires all of our societies. Your generation is stepping into leadership during a global turning point. You understand the speed of culture, you understand digital influence, you understand how narratives shape reality. You are the generation leading movements in real time across borders, and that is extraordinary power with great responsibility. Because the same platforms that amplify empowerment can also normalize harm, as we have seen today. The same tools that build movements can also spread lots of misinformation. So the question for every young leader becomes, will you normalize the silence or seek actual truth? Performative empowerment or structural change? Visibility without safety or systems that actually protect both? Civil society is where those choices take actual shape. One of the most important global shifts happening right now is the rise of survivor-informed leadership. For generations, survivors were positioned as just stories. Now we are becoming strategists. This shift matters because survivors carry insight systems that often overlook where prevention failed, where language was harmful, where silence was enabled, and where healing actually truly begins. When survivors are centered, activism becomes more precise, human, and transformative. And many of you will carry this shift forward as policymakers, founders, educators, artists, and innovators. If we want gender equality to move from aspiration to reality, the next era must look completely different. We must invest in prevention as a response, fund grassroots leaders early, design child-centered empowerment frameworks, build cross-sector collaborations globally, and ensure the most impacted voices are shaping solutions. We also must enter an era where we are not bending to ego. We're deconditioning the lies that were taught to us, no matter where we come from, and go beyond taking rightful accountability to make sure that we're leading from a lens of truth that we are determined to find. Outside of the propaganda of the media, outside of what our governments may be saying, and current affected systems. Understanding that true leadership stems from the one who carries the power of a 360-degree lens that goes beyond black and white, a lens that sees the clarity in our diversity. Because empowerment is not a campaign, it is an ecosystem, and all ecosystems are built intentionally. So the last thing I'll leave you with is every generation is handed a blueprint in which we're all building out today, and it's a choice to maintain what exists or to completely redesign what's actually possible for the future. Civil society is where we redesign every single thing from the past and create a new future, a new world. It's where young leaders refuse inherited silence, where survivors become architects of change, and where courage becomes a collective. You do not need permission to lead in this era. You only need your conviction. So if you see the gaps, you feel the urgency, and you have the vision, you are already a part of the generation shaping what comes next. And when history looks back at this moment, it won't only ask what you believed, it will ask what you actually built. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I definitely have so many reflections on this, but I would like to prioritize our participants as I've been seeing some questions and comments, but I'm just gonna highlight that I think the most thought-provoking question and the note that you posted was, why does prevention comes after the harm happens? I think that very well summarizes your highlights for today. Thank you so much. That was impactful, moving, and I believe made a change in the room. Thank you. So I will first turn to Abdullah. Please, very, very shortly introduce yourself. Let us know which country you're based in and share your question or comment. Abdullah, over to you. Abdullah Sahibi.
Hello everyone. Good day. I'm joining from Afghanistan, and as you know, the situation here, many girls face restrictions on education and even beyond that. And if I be clear, they cannot proceed their education over sixth grade, and not to mention university. And there are a lot of other problems too. But I want to focus on the education because, as I mentioned in the previous session too, I am a teacher. Okay, so this part concerns me much more. And my question is that what are practical ways to support girls who feel hopeless after losing access to school without increasing risk or putting them in risk, keeping in mind our situation here in Afghanistan? What can we do for them in this situation? Thanks.
Thank you, Abdullah. I think the situation in Afghanistan, there are many serious crimes against humanity in your country, unfortunately, but the particular status of women and girls in Afghanistan is a shame. to our all global community as we live in 2026. So we are in full solidarity with you, but I will turn to our speakers for their reflections. I think this was a very important
May I
question because, yes,
may I add something or bold something? I'm really sorry about this too, but if we focus more about the practical ways to make changes, I think it would be, beneficent, not
absolutely,
focusing on what actually is. Okay.
absolutely. Well, over to you, Jelena and Ashley, any reflections on possible practical methods?
Yes, thank you, Cemre and Abdullah. Thank you for your question. Actually, you may know that we reviewed the State Party of Afghanistan at CEDAW committee in June. So through Cemre, I will send you the concluding observations, and you will see there are very specific recommendations, concerns, obviously. It was not a dialogue traditionally as the others because the de facto were not there. It was the diplomacy, the former diplomacy, right? We had those diplomats at the permanent mission of the Afghanistan in Geneva, right? So what did we recommend? Of course, they need to reinstate. We ask the de facto authorities to reinstate access to education for girls and women. We were talking about the grave concern of gender persecution in Afghanistan and harmful practices. And then we recommended to the de facto, the international community, very specific aspects of coherence with the international law, right? And as Cemre was saying, there are crimes against humanity being committed. So I don't remember off top of my head, and I was in the task force for the State Party of Afghanistan, and I reviewed Article 5, harmful practices, right? So that's why I don't remember what we recommended for education, but you have it on this document. And I will compile the concluding observations, the press release that we drafted to this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Jelena. And I would like to note that both Jelena and Ashley are quite active on LinkedIn. So if you could follow them, connect them over social media, we can still continue this discussion online as well. Thank you so much, Abdullah. Ashley, any brief reflections before I give the floor
I was just going to
GYLP?
Yes, I was just going to quickly state also, I was supposed to work with the Malala Fund last year until funding got cut for the project we were going to work on, actually coming to Afghanistan to be able to raise awareness for what she's doing. She is doing incredible work with her nonprofit that actually is based here out of New York to be able to create different avenues of education for girls. So I would definitely highly suggest you checking out her website, the Malala Fund. She is in several different countries now, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Kenya, and a few others. And they're doing some really incredible work. So I think that is another great resource.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. And one last touch up from my side before I give the floor to Jyoti is that currently the UN is also working on a treaty, international treaty, Crimes Against Humanity Treaty, which is going to codify gender apartheid regimes. So I think it's very important that we follow that procedure as the progress is quite transparent. There are many resources online to keep yourself posted. So thank you so much. Jyoti from India, you have posted some nice comments. Would you like to briefly share those? If you're available to unmute. If not, I'll pass it over to Hubert. Okay. I believe you're not able to unmute yourself, but we can read out your comment later. So Hubert from Poland, over to you. Would you like to join us? Yes,
post
your course. Question.
Good afternoon, everyone, and also good morning and good evening, depending on where you are right now. Concerning my question, I would like to focus on social and cultural stereotypes and outlooks which are harmful towards the progression of gender equality. As we may know already, different choices can be made to enforce and promote gender equality, especially lawmaking and education. However, I was wondering myself, what other actions or what other choices can we as society make to promote gender equality in terms of combating cultural and societal stereotypes and outlooks which are harmful, which limit not only lawmaking but also education when it comes to promoting gender equality.
Thank you, Hubert. And challenging cultural, social stereotypes really remains on the forefront of Ashley's work. So I'm pretty sure she will have some good reflections.
Yes, definitely so much to talk about with this for sure. But for the sake of time, I think the biggest thing right now is on a community and local level, being a part of your local community boards, being active in your grassroots movements that center around these topics and issues. Because right now, I mean, there's just so much happening around the globe when it comes to this exact thing, and they're trying so hard to persecute in a huge way gender equality. And it takes us really standing up collectively to say that we aren't going to accept what they're trying to push and give us. And that's going to take a whole shift and a mindset of all of our societies, to be honest, because things are getting crazier and they're trying to add more restrictions to be able to determine what that even looks like for them on a governmental level. So we as locals and as community members gathering together, doing these forums, creating campaigns even media-wise really will be helpful. That's something we're working on now currently at my company as we work. I own a social impact production company. So media is a huge thing for me, but doing media the correct way where it's actually truth informative and it's working with people, like I said, like the Malala Fund, working with Dove, for instance, where we did the 2023 Kids Online Safety Act campaign, being able to push out media to the public that is true and that is raising the awareness of the disparities when it comes to these issues, and basically also taking a stand of like, we're not going to take it, and having that mentality that we're going to get creative with media, with storytelling, to be able to continue to combat and put pressure on our governments and officials when it comes to these issues.
Yeah, thank you. I will soon give the floor to Cevdet for the last question, but in the meantime, I also would like to share two concrete civil society actions that are in the progress of making a real change. One of them is the End Gender campaign and End Gender Apartheid. End Gender Apartheid campaign, and I am posting the link now in the chat. This is formed by a group of very prominent human rights advocates covering Afghanistan and Iran. As you know, the gender apartheid regimes are overcoming in those countries to really silence women in all spheres of life. This includes from political participation to civic participation, in education, in social life, and you name it. So as such undemocratic governments are increasing their tactics of pressure to oppress women, we need to convene on a global scale to really make an impact. And I would like to note that the work of End Gender Apartheid campaign really founded a grassroots initiative that kicked a start for UN to mobilize and work on the Crimes Against Humanity Treaty. that is currently in the making that will be codifying gender apartheid. This is one. And 148 billion campaign is another, for example, very big social movement that targets to raise awareness on the essentiality of choosing a female leader for United Nations. And by the end of this year, there will be elections. As the term of Antonio Guterres is coming to an end, as you know, we never had a female decision maker leading this multilateral organization. So please do take a look at these two civil society-led campaigns that had a real impact on how we govern in international multilateral spaces. So thank you so much, Hubert, for your reflection and question. So I will turn to Jevdet now from Thailand. We move to Thailand now.
Hi, I just have a quick question.
Please go ahead.
Considering we all live in a world that includes many cultures, beliefs, and backgrounds, and each of them have like a different understanding about the roles of women and like gender awareness, and if so, how do you work towards creating a mutual understanding between different cultural views and opinions about the roles of women?
That's
I
an
think
interesting
that,
one.
yeah. I think if you're asking how do we, like, or you're asking like on a global level, like how do we,
Yeah, generally on a global level.
okay,
How do we
cool.
agree? I think your question is
How
that,
do
right?
we create an understanding? Because to tackle problems, we first need to understand what the problems are. And like
Got
to
you.
tackle them, we need to have mutual understanding about each of our cultural views. Like a culture might see something as fine while the other doesn't. So you need to create
Right.
like a dialogue between them to tackle the issues.
For sure. Okay. So I think that starts with forums like this, for the future of creating those spaces if they're not already being created, which they are. But also too, I think it's very important to understand that global consciousness for sure can be a thing, and it should be, right? But we're all different. Our diversity, in a lot of ways makes us very unique and wonderful, but also too, there's a lot within our cultures too that have been taught to us, as I spoke about, that need to be deconditioned. So, for instance, I'll talk about what I know the most and the best at this point, trafficking and assault. That it's been happening from the beginning of time, right? In every single community around the globe. It's a huge actual big problem. So it's like it starts from us going back to the beginning, like you said, and realizing that the huge issue have been always there when it comes to child brides, when it comes to certain age loopholes that governments have tried to make. When it comes to culturally too, a lot of our ancestors doing things that were not the best. So it's being super honest about those things within our cultures and facing them head on to then be able to come together to have that collective consciousness. I think the problem we're facing right now as a globe is a lot of people aren't willing to fully do the internal work of deconditioning and deconstructing their minds and looking at where they did come from in order to move forward with the new world, which is going to, like I said earlier, take a huge mindset shift when it comes to who are we, what values are we wanting to create now, even if the forefathers, you know what I'm saying, started off in a certain way. I was just talking about this on a podcast interview a couple days ago. They were talking about the forefathers of the United States and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, the forefathers are not great. And it's like, yes, we have the Constitution, we have XYZ, but there's so much that just needs to be changed. There's so many loopholes that were created specifically to protect predators. So it's like we have to be able to look at those things strategically, but also very upfront and directly to see what within us and our cultures definitely is not good that needs to be changed. And then how can we bring that conversation to our communities first and foremost? Then collective consciousness can happen. But I think we have to start at the, start at the base before we can kind of run, to get everybody together, which is what I'm trying to talk about a lot now currently in our situation here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashley. And today we have many he for she's in the room, advocates of gender equality, interested with asking questions. So couple more minutes. I would like to give the floor lastly to Ahmad from Nigeria for very brief reflections. Please keep your question targeted, as I know Ashley needs to leave for another engagement as well. But over to you for the last question.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. Both speakers have did justice to the topic regarding women empowerment and gender equality. My question was initially directed to Ms. Pamela, but I don't know in her absence if Ms. Ashley could answer such question on her behalf. So most of the gender equality efforts, the efforts advocacy, they often focus primarily on girls and women, while men and boys may not be equally engaged in such conversation. So considering that the attitudes and also involvement of men and boys are critical to achieving lasting equality, are there frameworks within the CEDAW, which is the Discrimination Against Women Convention against Discrimination Against Women, or any UN gender equality organization that intentionally incorporate men and boys into their strategies and intervention? I don't know if they are, because mostly the discussion is mostly focused on gender equality, women are mostly the participant. I don't know if the CEDAW has a framework to include men and boys in the discussion, because at long last, there's a saying that says, it is not all men, but it is always a man that might transgress, maybe abuse, harm those females. So I don't know if there's any framework between the CEDAW and the United Nations Gender Equality Organization that have such framework to incorporate men and boys part of the discussion and also participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Even if not related to UN, I'm pretty sure Ashley may have reflections on how to engage more men and young boys into the discussion.
Yes, so I definitely think, Cemre would be able to help with the other part of the question. But when it comes to just being engaged and genuine about your support and overall of the discussion for gender equality, it really starts with, once again, I think the same thing of like, where is your heart at? Like, where are you coming from? And how are you helping the men and the boys in your world understand how to be a healthy part of society? Just like all of us have to do the work, right? Like, it's not all on men, but the whole thing that I'm teaching a lot this year to people, once again, is deconstruction, deconditioning, and the reconstruction of oneself and life, so they can be able to be a healthier part of society. So what we see right now is a lot of things going on when it comes to men, the rise in femicide rates and other things and such. But I think it all comes back to, how are you helping to gather your community and empower one another to support each other's healing and one another's selves, so you can be able to further support women as well, and all genders, when it comes to the life they're trying to lead, when it comes to advocating for their rights, for education for girls. How are you showing up? And how are you looking at the situation? And how are you bringing others along in your world with you? How are you being a leader every day? It's like we're all leaders on this call. How does that look for you on a daily basis? When you're leading in your family, when you're leading at school, when you're leading just in just the community that you live in, what conversations are you having and starting, taking the initiative to start? So I think the biggest thing men could be doing right now is taking more initiative to start forums such as these, to be able to sit together and decompress, deconstruct, understand where we are right now, honestly, and say, hey, okay, how can we help this? How can we shift the narrative? Because we need that right now. That's so crucial to gender equality, is honestly men being more healed versions of themselves in our entire globe. And we need that. We need you all to be able to push forward, because we can't do it alone. So it starts with your community, who you're taking with you, and how you're leading.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Ahmed, I also want to add that, yes, you're right. We see more women or female leadership in driving conversation at a level of grassroots civil society initiatives from a bottom-up approach. But I would like to note the other side of the coin, because at UN, for example, the percentage of women ambassadors are ranking around 21% only at the highest levels of like national decision-making mechanisms, serving as parliamentarians. The range is about 27% that women compose these, takes place in these leadership positions. So at the end of the day, unfortunately, as of today, the decisions regarding gender equality, women's rights are still made by men. But we absolutely need more women to take leadership places, so that the equality is set on the highest levels where the decisions are being made, the policy trajectories are diverted. So thank you so much. But there are gender quotas at UN when the decision-making bodies are crafted. But please do connect with Jelena on social media. I'm pretty sure she will have more reflections in terms of CEDAW. Thank you so much. Well, Ashley, I do appreciate your time this morning. And once again, she's an aspirational person, a social media leader, creating a real change over the platforms that she leads. So I kindly invite everybody to follow her on Instagram, on LinkedIn, as well as Jelena as well. So Ashley, any last reflections you would like to share with us before you leave the stage?
I just want to say thank you so much for all your lovely questions and just for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We are delighted with your company this morning. Thank you. And all the best in your next engagement. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, all.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, yes, thank you, everybody. That was a moving discussion, very insightful, very transformative. I believe we all had some notes to think about for later, and we were truly, I believe I was, inspired by the two speakers. And please make sure that the conversation is alive, it's ongoing over social media. As you know, I am always at your disposal over WhatsApp as well. So now I will give the floor to Mehmet for the workshop session.
Thank you, Cemre. Thank you, everyone. I think this was a very productive, very engaging discussion, and I think the questions were right, very to the point. I just wanted to share some, like maybe reflections to some of the questions, especially the question that Abdullah Sahibi asked regarding the situation in Afghanistan. So he wanted like some real action. Sometimes it's difficult to, like to move to mountains. But I think what I have learned through my human rights advocacy at the United Nations is that, we have to, report. Okay, we have to keep statistics, information, and report it to the United Nations. And we are, as an organization, we work on human rights issues, and sometimes, there are so different human rights issues that comes to us, and we're reporting to these. And sometimes the United Nations has different dilemmas, and sometimes they have like shortcomings, especially at this time when the UN is facing financial challenges that really impact their resources, especially human resources. So they don't have the enough staff members to take all the human rights violations and consider 193 countries, and a lot of violations are coming from all over the world. But however, it does not stop us from reporting these issues. Just to give you an example, for example, on one country, okay, there were grave human rights violations against women, And we made a submission about 9 years ago. After 9 years, okay, one of these UN agencies got back to us. They said, we're sorry, it's been 9 years, but now it's your turn. And then they told me that, they could only take one case in a year to report to because this committee publishes a report on a country, and then they only have capacity to report just one report in 1 year. So it was our turn. So we were a little bit unhappy about it, but happy that they take on it, right? So now, we provided them reports, our reports. The committee members met with us more than 2.5 hours on, meetups, and then they interviewed more than 30 women, men, and experts. Now, hopefully in 2016, 26, they will be coming with a report by the United Nations after 9 years, maybe 10 years. But still, it will be documented, it will be reported, and human rights violations and or crimes against humanity does not expire within the years. So at this time, I think I highly recommend that, like those violations, they should be reported to the United Nations. And if you need help, maybe we can have a private discussion on this issue. Number two, social change is taking time. It's not easy. And I think that was a question about Jeff, that how can we, understand differences in different cultures across the world, and maybe one thing that is not, the perspectives are different. I think, I have done my PhD and I'm just like completing it, and social change is my, topic. And, I think organizations, societies, we have to be culturally sensitive to societies or organizations. That is true. But however, I think there are so many challenges that women face that are in common. So just bringing people together, men and women, discussing these issues, then we will come to an understanding that, wow, this issue is not only pertaining to this country or this society. Okay, those are like common global challenges. I think those are the things that we should focus on rather than the differences, because differences, yes, we have geographic differences, religious differences, cultural, ethnic, and those, like, we should respect those. But however, we should focus on the common challenges we face as humanity. So those are some of the ideas that I want to share with you. But of course, now I have, some, agenda items to discuss with you. And first of all, okay, let me just share my screen with you. Okay. All right. Today we will be talking about the working groups, but before we do that, okay, I just would like to, share with you. Okay, let me see if I can do a presentation. Okay, let me just stop my screen because I have to show you the sound as well. Okay, great. All right. As you may know, we had the Global Youth Voices campaign. This was a digital interface storytelling campaign, and we wanted young people to share their perspectives in building peaceful and inclusive societies. And we have 3 different themes, and I think 2 of our colleagues, okay, one of them was Lerato Maris, and she sent a wonderful video message. And thank you, Lerato. And I think that was a great message, and I would like you guys to hear her message before we continue.
Volunteerism is an act of service. Being a volunteer is an honor and pride. It puts people's needs first before your own. It is selfless and is not self-centered. It's an act of giving, not only to the people around you, but back to your country and back to the environment. Volunteerism does promote peace, sustainability, diversity, inclusivity, because you extend a hand, not in race, background, or level of education, because people, when you volunteer, are humans first before any status quo. Volunteerism in promoting peace this year is about love. It's about courage. It's about honor. It's about defeating what is impossible. It's about rebuilding, re-imaging, remolding, reshaping, reformation, everything that has a negative. Volunteerism this year is about bringing back peace and restoration in everything we do. It is selfless. It is love. It is gratitude. It is everything every human needs to know, needs to experience at least once in their life. It is a good deed.
Well, thank you, Elrod. I think that
Fun.
was a great, message of volunteerism. And you shared your experience from South Africa in a message. So basically, we will have such opportunities for you guys throughout the year. And please take these opportunities to share your reflections. And so once you do it, we will put in a very nice, message, video message like this, and we will disseminate it on social media, YouTube, and also this will be uploaded to World Interfaith Harmony Week. Currently our board members and advisory board members, they are just evaluating them. And we have one more. I think Angela has a message as well. Let's just watch that as well. And if I'm missing anybody else, so you can just let me know. But let's see Angela's message as well.
Iqbal rightly said that religions don't preach enmity. And this World Interfaith Harmony Week, I take you through the different religions of my country to find the greatest religion, that is humanity.
As it is said that life is a full circle, this is the very place where my circle for belief started. My school, St. Thomas, where I started my stepping stones to question belief, to understand belief, being grateful for the institution for inculcating in me humanity.
And from here we begin the pilgrimage to humanity in different faiths.
My humble perspective is like, if at all we are living accordingly to the biblical values, then the faith will be having a new face in the contemporary era. If at all, that's at all. Like we all have that personal celebration mode of Christianity, but unfortunately, living the gospel values is lacking somewhere. So once we Christians, especially the Catholics, start living the Christian values, basically the biblical values, definitely it will be good for the society.
तो भाई भगवान के नामों का उच्चारण करना, भगवान के नाम की शरण लेना.
Faith means like having trust and belief to each other actually. As far as you have trust, then there won't be any issue. Otherwise, like just saying I believe you, or like I have a faith towards you, doesn't make any sense.
You pray inside, and you pray for well-being and prosperous life for everyone in the world.
Like it. Like the fact also that all people keep the shoes because it respects the place, and I like this, and all people are welcome here.
So here you can see the people doing wuzu, which is a prior requirement of purity before the fulfillment of namaz. And this is the Jama Masjid of Delhi. People of all faiths come here, some to pray and others to admire the architecture and splendor of the Mughal rule.
And I end my pilgrimage with a thought resounding with all religions. The service to mankind is the service to God.
And here I sign off with a salam and another. Thank you.
Volunteerism is an act of service. Being a volunteer is an honor and pride. It puts people's needs first before your own. It is selfless and is not self-centered. It's an act of giving, not only to the people around you, but back to your country and back to the environment. Volunteerism does promote peace, sustainability, diversity, inclusivity, because you extend a hand, not in race, background, or level of education, because people, when you volunteer, are humans first before any status quo. Volunteerism in promoting peace this year is about love. It's about courage. It's about honor. It's about defeating what is impossible. It's about rebuilding, re-imaging, remolding, reshaping, reformation, everything that has a negative. Volunteerism this year is about bringing back peace and restoration in everything we do. It is selfless. It is love. It is gratitude. It is everything every human needs to know, needs to experience at least once in their life. It is a good deed. It's an
Well, thank you, Angela, for this wonderful video, and thank you for Lerato as well. It takes time to prepare these videos. So I would like to encourage you guys to take these initiatives and these opportunities to share your reflections and ideas. And now our board is just reviewing all these videos, and we will have some awards. But what is I think most great about this is that we will maybe we will organize a panel discussion out of these videos, participants. Maybe we will invite 5 of them for a discussion on, in April during the ECOSOC forum. So now let's move on to our discussion on the working groups. As you know, we have different working groups, and Priyanka, she shared, all the, working group poll on WhatsApp. And currently we have 19 members who selected human rights. We had 8 people who selected interfaith, and we had 6 members who selected quality education, 6 again for economic development, and 2 for climate change, and 1 for health, global health. So we have 42 members who selected, and if you have not, you can go back to our WhatsApp group and you can select it from there. Now let's go to the working group. So what is it that we would like to do with the working groups? Okay, so let me show this. Okay. So basically, like this 2026, we wanted you to select one of these working groups, and this is a great opportunity for you to engage and work together with other participants in your working group. So we would like you to be dedicated to your group members, and so we will form we have already formed groups for each group via WhatsApp, and we will be creating these opportunities for you so that you can come together and have a meeting, and then later on we would like to help you organize some events. So the Human Rights Working Group, okay, this group will focus on justice, rule of law, human rights advocacy, democracy, civil engagement, and peace building. So you have, the details via WhatsApp. Priyanka has already shared. So what we would like from you is to organize a panel discussion. It could be an online panel discussion on a human rights topic. But of course, once you selected the human rights issue that you would like to focus on, we would like you to, closely working with us, and then we make a decision together. So it could be, you can hold maybe a dialogue sessions, and just like we had 2 experts, it could be maybe an expert. You can invite experts, and we can have maybe a special session for your working group. Or it could be a writing collaborative opinion articles, or it could be a research project as well. Okay, so our goal is to raise awareness, and all of these maybe videos or sessions or maybe policy review or research article could be published on our website, and we can also disseminate these within the UN. So now we will, form all these, and we will transfer all the members, and what is next? We will be discussing quality education. We will ask this group to discuss on inclusive education, digital literacy, lifelong learning, and education quality. And there is a disparity on quality education in different parts of the world. Again, this group will come together. They can organize maybe a webinar, or they can come up with a the discussion dialogue session, or they can come up with maybe a research article, and these research articles could be published on our blog as well. And our goal is to raise awareness, and you can also come up with maybe some maybe it could be a social media campaign as well. Okay, And then the climate action, they will be addressing environmental sustainability, climate justice, resilience, and youth advocacy. And this group can also focus on the, climate change climate summit that happened in Brazil this year, but next year it will be happening in Turkey. So you can, this group can follow the climate summit as well. Okay, and then they can again organize an online session, a panel discussion, or they can come up with some articles or a research project. And same thing with interfaith working group. And you will have 5 months. Okay, so what we would like from the working groups, starting from today until next session, is to have at least one meeting. Okay, among yourself. We would like you to choose your leadership and then decide what you want to do. You can organize maybe interfaith roundtable discussions, or you can organize maybe a research topic. You can come up with a theme, or you can organize something for the World Interfaith Harmony Week, which will be next year. So do not think of this working group only organizing an event during these 6 months. It could go beyond, okay? Or it could be a social media awareness campaign as well. And then likewise with Global Health Group, you can work on different health equity issues, or, like mental health, global health systems. You can focus on maybe refugees and how refugees are, needing different global health, like well-being issues as well. Okay. So, and also we will have economic development working group and so forth. So our expectations are these, okay? We, expect our participants to engage in discussions and group activities. So that's why we formed these WhatsApp group, okay, for each working group. So, so the next step will be coming together, scheduling maybe a date and time that you can have a meeting to select your leadership, and also, thinking about your agenda item. And please, like for all members, do not stay quiet. Just contribute your ideas and collaborate, of course, respectfully. And we would like you to organize at least one session. It could be a panel discussion, it could be a webinar or a dialogue. You can all discuss this, but of course, later on, once you come up with some ideas, and then we would like you to put it on paper, and then, share those ideas with us so that we can, like with our GW executive team, we can support in those, okay? And then the outputs, will be published on the JWF Academy, our website, and our YouTube and social media handles as well, okay? And presentations, okay? Again, online sessions, international webinars, side events, and also there will be an opportunity maybe for you guys to, maybe if you have a research paper, it could be presented on one of our events, maybe during the UN General Assembly in September, or maybe during the Commission on the Status of Women. Okay, so you can learn more about this, and we already shared this information with you. I don't want to go into details with that. Cemre, do you want to add into the working groups other than these I shared?
No, if we have maybe a couple minutes, we can give the floor to Zeynep, as she had some experience in conducting a policy research and spoke at one of our conferences. Very briefly.
Yes, actually, that was like one of the things that I wanted to show. So Zeynep and Elif, they worked on a policy brief, and it took them 3 months to work on this policy brief. And they, Zeynep can maybe more elaborate on this one. Zeynep, you want to talk about your
Yes.
project?
So it was a really good project that we initiated with the intern and with my co-interns. So our topic was rebuilding youth trust and inclusive governance and multilateralism. What we literally did is go through the reports that have been already published, and the major thing that we did is conducting interviews, street interviews, and expert interviews. So we took all these and combined them all in our research paper, and it was so fun, I could say. And we just adjusted our time very well, and Cemre and Mehmet really helped us through as well.
Yeah, I think the good outcome of this is that now you had, like a policy review that is published and it is disseminated within the United Nations Department of Global Communications, and it is published on our website. And also you created videos, and these videos, just like this, let me just show you briefly.
Hi everyone, my name is Elif.
My name is Zeynep.
And we're really excited to share this highlight video with you guys.
As part of our research paper, we conducted a series of interviews to explore different perspectives and experiences.
These conversations gave us powerful insights and stories that shaped our work.
In this video, you'll see some of the key moments from our interview process.
So let's get started.
All right, so you could be very creative in terms of creating videos like this, so that you can pitch your story, or it could be an article, or it could be a research project, and it could be, like disseminated on social media as well. So now let's give the floor to, our participants. Let's see if you have any questions or anything that you would like to share with us.
Angela had a question. I saw her hand up, but
Sure.
you're able to join us. If not, please post your question on the chat. I believe we don't have much. Yes, Angela, go ahead.
Greetings. Actually, I wanted to know if we can be a part of more than one group, because I was interested in joining human rights, but obviously I'm also working in the educational field. And I also wanted to be a part of the interfaith relation. So these three were like the things that I wanted to be a part of. So is it possible that we can be a part of more than one group? That was it.
I mean, of course, you can be a member of more than one working groups, but however, it will take time. So if you can really handle, joining 3 different meetings, and you will be assigned with 3 different tasks. And if you think that you can, fulfill contribute to these 2 or 3 different working groups, of course, but the optimal is, at least for every member over here to join one of the working groups and really come up with some ideas. And in the chat, I shared some information for the working groups. So as you can just look at the chat box, and I say, we would like you to schedule your first meeting, introduce yourself, and nominate yourself or nominate another person as a lead person. You can have 1 lead person, or if you want, you can have 2 lead persons. It could be maybe 1 male and 1 female, if that's how you'd like to make it. And then schedule a Zoom meeting as soon as possible. And sometimes it's difficult because you are coming from different geographic regions. So you should be mindful of that as well, of course. And we would like to just, come up with an agenda, brainstorm on the goals and objectives that you would like to do. It could be a virtual panel discussion, it could be a digital campaign, or it could be an article or a research paper. Once you have your first meeting, then next session 3, we will invite the leaders during the workshop session. We will invite you to share your outcomes of your meeting. So for the next 1 month, your goal is to have a meeting, okay, and then come up with some ideas, and then share those ideas with us. And also, the human rights group, working group has 19 people. It might be a little bit difficult to, work on just one project with 19 people. So what you can do, maybe you can have a meeting to see if 19 people will really, come. And let's say, if you want, you can maybe come up with 3 different topics. So you can divide the group into 3 themes or topics. So you can have a group of maybe like 6, 7 people. Okay, I think more than 8 people in a group would be a little difficult for everyone to contribute. And other groups has 6 to 8, and just one working group, which is global health. There's only one person. That one person, I don't know if it might be difficult to work on just one project by himself or herself. So that one person can join another one. Likewise with the other working group, which is, let me see, it is it has 2 climate change. Climate change has 2 persons, members. It is doable. Okay, 2 people can really come up with a program on climate change. And if they would like to continue with 2 people, that's fine. But if you would like to join another group, that's possible as well. All right, okay. I think, if you guys do not have any questions, we don't want to keep you wait further. So maybe one last chance if anybody has any questions about the working groups.
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if a group could work on maybe 2 projects out of the initially 4 listed. Maybe they could organize an online webinar and also make a publication. Is it possible, or would you just choose one out of the 4 things we are to do as a group?
Yeah, I mean, everything is possible. Maybe, like for some larger groups, maybe one, you can designate one group to work on a virtual event, and another group can come up with a research on the topic. So you can work, the whole group on one project with 2 different outcomes. Okay. That is possible. For example, we did that as well. For example, during the World Interfaith Harmony Week, we had a discussion with expert speakers. And then once the speakers, they spoke, we collected their speech materials, but also we included our other research materials, and we come up with a policy report and submit it to the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights on Religious freedom. Okay, that could be a possibility as well. But of course, the group can have 2 different projects. As you said, one group can work on an online webinar, and then the other group can work on a research project. That is possible as well. And also, just one more, thing that I'd like to share with you. Even though we communicate with you via email, however, WhatsApp is, is a very good, very effective and efficient, way of communications. And I think like some of you have not joined the WhatsApp groups. I just would like to show, those names. And if you are in this list, okay, let me show that. Okay, so these 12 people, okay, members, they can. Okay, it's Rosie Cool, Slays, Sman, Bengisu, Gopal, Abdul, Abrar, Kubranur, Ibrahim, Lerato, Haley, and Refia. So you guys are not in the WhatsApp group, and since we are communicating via WhatsApp during the month, so if you do not sign up to the WhatsApp group, then you will not be able to hear all these communications. So we put information on the chat box, so you can just look at it, and we also, I think Priyanka might have shared that information with you via email. So just join the WhatsApp group so you can have more engaging discussions. So if there is no any other questions, Cemre, it's over to you for closing.
Thank you so much, Mehmet. We have 6 months of working time. We're in session 2 already. Even though Mehmet kindly noted that your projects can be implemented following after the conclusion of the program, we highly appreciate receiving updates on a monthly basis for your progress. So in March meeting, which will take as usual on the last Thursday of the month, March, we expect to receive some updates if that is that you had your coordination meeting, if you have decided on some tasks. So I would like to remind you that the working session will be designated to receive updates. And in the meantime, as you very well know, it is among our expectations for you to receive certificate of completion as you have some tasks. Attending 2 virtual or in-person human rights events are among those. So if you have attended any meeting or a panel discussion, either virtual or in person, please write a very short summary to info@jwf.org so that we can keep a track on your completion on the expected tasks as well. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you next month over Zoom, but the WhatsApp groups are available for any questions or comments. Thank you all.